An NTTV special report, UNT Pres Talks with Dr. Neal Smatresk.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of UNT Pres Talks, this time in person, but of course socially distanced coronavirus edition. How are you doing today, President Smatresk?
I'm doing great. Every day's busy, but it's good to see the progress we're making.
It sounds about right. All right, so just going to go ahead and dive in. Last week, a UNT student was unfortunately sexually assaulted in a Kerr Hall dorm room. What actions is UNT taking?
Well, first, we're not 100% sure it was in Kerr Hall, and we're investigating. Whenever something like this happens, we ask that people report it to the police, to the Dean of Students, to our EEOAA office, and that we have investigators on it. We are investigating as we do all of these. We take them incredibly seriously. This is a major charge, and we will do everything we can if we find that the individuals involved have done what is alleged to remove that threat from the campus.
Okay. And can you discuss some of the various options available to UNT students should they feel threatened or unsafe on campus?
Yeah, well, the first thing you do is if you feel unsafe, call 911.
Yes.
Period. That's your fastest route to good, able defense from our police. Secondly, if you feel unsafe in a not immediately threatening, you've got the Dean of Students you can report to, our EEOAA office that you can report to, or our campus police, depending on what kind of threat it is. And we also have report.unt.edu, which allows people to send in reports, and we monitor that continuously and act on them as required by law and as required by our own policies.
Okay. And moving on, a couple of weeks ago, YCT, or the Young Conservatives of Texas, we have discussed them before, had a gathering in front of the Union to plant flags as part of a pro-life memorial/protest. Now, gatherings like this have been banned from the university, but people are wondering, why was this one able to continue?
Well, we're not clear that it was what we would construe as an event. Let me be clear about this, though. No events are currently authorized for campus. We've been maintaining a very strict discipline and saying, if we ever consider events, then those events will be routed through our safety and incident management group or our student life group as appropriate. They'll make sure that everything that's done is being approved and that it's reasonable. So an event is defined by the number of people and the level of activity. I can't speak to the number of people and the level of activity in this, but it didn't appear to arise as an event or an event that should not have been held by one of our organizations. And it also has implications around freedom of speech. Okay,
so you're saying the reason this event was able to continue was the level of action taken and the number of people.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't call it an event. I mean,
yes.
we have a strict definition of what event means, okay? So, you know, if a few people go out and they want to plant flags around campus, that's a freedom of speech issue, not an event issue.
Okay. And moving on from that, UNT recently joined other schools in canceling a football game due to players testing positive for COVID-19. Is UNT taking additional steps within the athletics office to underscore the importance of following COVID-19 protocol?
Oh, yes. And let me tell you, the student athletes are the first to want to be able to play. They are here because they want to compete, and they're here because they want to make a difference. So I'm sure that when some of them test positive, it's heart-wrenching for many others. It's the contact tracing, by the way, around close contacts to those who test positive that actually takes out like whole defenses or whole offenses. What we are doing is we're following not just NC2A and Conference USA guidelines, but we're actually going a step above. We test 3 times a week. So it's very serious. We do 2 rapids and a PCR. And that result helps us to determine who's eligible to play and who isn't. What we have noticed, and this is something that's arising both at the university and our surveillance testing as well as across the country, and other conferences have seen the same thing, is that rapid tests are maybe 98% accurate for positives, which means if you test 100 times, 2 people are going to show up positive. So when we got a rapid test and people were showing up positive, we're now doing a confirmatory PCR test if they're asymptomatic. And we're finding under those circumstances that very few people were actually infected. They were false positives. So we have a strict testing protocol. We follow our guidelines. We make sure that we compete in a safe fashion. And so far as I can tell, in student-to-student competition on the field, there is not evidence that we're transmitting COVID because the teams are bubbled after the Friday test that they receive.
Okay, and just to clarify, the rapid tests are the saliva test and the PCR test?
No, the rapid test is the antigen test. It's still a swab test. It gives a result in 10 minutes or so. And again, if you're symptomatic and you test positive, the rapid test is considered definitive. If you are asymptomatic and you test positive, we do a confirmatory PCR, both in our health center as well as on our football team.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I have been very confused on that, as I'm sure a lot of students are. That is all I have right now. Join us again after the break to talk about graduation. Stay tuned. So SMU recently removed students from their student section due to a lack of social distancing and masks. If this happens at UNT, do we have the same plans? Should students not be following COVID protocols in a student section at football games and sporting events?
Well, first, this is a huge concern for me. I don't want to see a surge as a result of students not following social distancing and masking guidelines. I was not able to go to the last game, but I asked those folks in the cabinet and elsewhere to observe. And they said they felt the majority of students were trying to, they might have been sitting close together, but they were masked or trying to socially distance. If we get to a situation that appeared to be somewhat more riotous at the SMU game, we would evacuate the stands. I'm also concerned that the folks who are paying for tickets in the Mean Green Club and elsewhere are following the same sets of rules. I'm working with Ren Baker right now to make sure people know that it's a privilege to have football, not a right, and that if people can't follow the rules, we won't be able to have fans in the stands.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, kind of following the same guideline, is there a timetable right now for UNT students to be able to return to a fully on-campus course? Is there a amount of time, or is there some procedures we have to follow in order for that to happen?
Well, we're going to hope that either summer or fall we'll see a full return to face-to-face instruction. Now, I don't know if it'll ever be fully the same because we've developed a lot of really good online inventory and there's going to be people who want that. But that said, we hope to see that the residence halls are full, that the student union's being used, that the campus has people, we're holding big events, we're having homecoming and bonfires, and that should be available next fall, pending a vaccination development, and a vaccine's going to be key, and of course whatever the CDC and local health authorities say.
Okay, and finally, there has been some student frustration over the recent virtual graduation. Since football games are being held live in that same stadium, the graduations would have been held in. What is the plan for graduation this fall?
Well, I listened, and let me be clear on a couple points. What most people want is to go to a graduation with their friends and family in the stands, to walk across the stage, to shake hands, and to have their name read. We can't do that. There's no safe way, there's no space, there's no reasonable method to do this. If people want a live graduation, it would be under very different circumstances, and I've currently got a team looking at the issue right now to determine if we might do a winter graduation in Apogee Stadium.
Okay, and a winter graduation for the 2020 August and the 2019 fall graduates?
Well, a fall graduation, it would be for the people who are here in the stands. We would have practical limitations if we do this because of social distancing requirements. We'd have to have limited number of parents or loved ones attend. I mean, it's not, COVID's forced terrible choices on us. There's no great solution until we can get vaccinated and get together and be in face-to-face circumstances and celebrations, which are so important to the tradition of this university. But that said, we're looking at a way that if people want the pomp and circumstance and the conferral of a degree, that we can do that, that will hopefully give everyone that closure and the finality that people want when they do something as momentous as graduate from college.
Thank you so much. That is all I have for you today. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think we've covered just about everything.
Just about everything.
And the kitchen sink.
And that concludes our first coronavirus socially distanced episode of UNT Pres Talks. Catch us next Friday, and see you then.
You've been watching an NTTV special report, UNT Pres Talks, with Dr. Neal Smatresk.